The table gleamed under soft lantern light, white linens rippling in the summer breeze on the rooftop terrace of a Boston hotel. It was my parents' 35th anniversary in the spring of 2022, and every detail had been curated. Antique silver, imported peonies, a string quartet playing beneath the stars. I sat near the end, like always, close enough to pour wine, far enough to be forgotten. Across from me, my older sister Claire had the spotlight, 3 stories deep into her favorite subject, herself. She spoke with dramatic flair, her boutique featured in a glossy magazine, a musician dropping by, an influencer wearing one of her silk scarves on Instagram. Dad's grin stretched wide. Mom's smile looked tight, but she didn't stop her. When dessert arrived, lavender crème brûlée from a bakery I once did invoices for. Claire leaned forward, glass raised high so everyone was watching. "How does it feel?" she asked sweetly, "being the most useless one here?" Laughter spilled like champagne, soft, sticky, hard to ignore. Dad chuckled deep. Mom offered her trademark closed-mouthed smile. Claire's husband smirked like he'd heard it before. Maybe he had. I didn't laugh, didn't look down. I simply placed my hands on the table and spoke, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut through the quartet's melody. "How does it feel?" I asked evenly, knowing the useless one won't be paying your bills anymore. The silence was instant. Forks froze mid-air. Someone coughed. Claire's smirk shattered. I stood, the scrape of my chair slicing the night air. No one moved to stop me. I walked past the peonies, past the candlelit table where polished silver gleamed like secrets, and out onto the empty street. My heels clicked against cobblestone, each step steadier than the last. They didn't know it yet, but everything had already changed. I was 13 when I heard panic in my mother's voice behind the cracked kitchen door. That was the first time I understood money could hum through walls like a warning. Dad had lost a major contract, and the mortgage was overdue. I'd been shelving books at Harbor Lane Books on weekends for $7.00 an hour. That night, I counted every dollar, $800.00 in total, and left the envelope on Dad's desk. He didn't say thank you. He called me reliable. 2 months later, Claire got a new convertible for her 18th birthday, cherry red with a custom plate and leather seats, the kind of car that made people stare on the streets of Boston. Claire squealed, my parents beamed. No one mentioned the envelope. By 16, I was working double shifts at a waterfront cafe. I gave Dad $500, 0 cents for new tools when he said his old set was worn out. He patted my head like I was a family pet, then told Mom I was practical. At 19, I got a partial scholarship to study art history in Florence, the first thing I'd ever wanted for myself. I sat on the back steps, rereading the acceptance letter until the words blurred. But Claire was behind on tuition again. Her apartment cost more than her part-time gallery job could cover. Dad called me into his office. "Family helps family, Corinne," he said. Voice final. I didn't fight. I wired $5,000, 0 cents. Everything I'd saved for Italy, into an account linked to Claire's school. She graduated a year later with honors and a portfolio my parents framed. I finished at a local state college, working nights to pay tuition. At Claire's wedding, I covered the reception deposit. When she opened her boutique, Maison Claire, I co-signed the loan. They called me steady, helpful, never by name, never with thanks. It was a Tuesday night in March 2021. I'd shut my laptop and brewed tea when my phone buzzed. Claire's name lit the screen. "Corinne, hey," she chirped. "I need a favor. The boutique's great, but there's a space next door. The bank needs a co-signer. Just $75,000, 0 cents. It's nothing, really. You're good with numbers, can you make it happen?" I sat up in bed, phone pressed to my ear. $75,000, 0 cents isn't nothing, Claire. "Oh, come on," she laughed, light and airy. "You sit in that little apartment writing grant proposals all day. You've got investments, no kids, no mortgage. It's not like you're curing cancer." My throat tightened. "No," I said. Pause. "No. As in you won't help me?" No, I repeated, as in I won't co-sign a $75,000 0 cents loan for someone who's never paid me back. The brightness drained from her voice. You're being selfish. The word hit like a match on dry paper. I didn't argue. I ended the call. The room felt heavy with silence as I opened my laptop. One click, then another, until I reached a folder named quietly, almost unconsciously, records. Password typed. Unlocked. Inside scanned. Receipts, bank transfers, tuition payments, boutique leases, all traced back to me. At the bottom, one file glowed like an ember. A notarized contract dated April 2015. Ownership stake 51%. Corinne Ellis. She'd cried the night she signed it, desperate to keep her boutique afloat. I liquidated everything I had to save her dream. She never read the terms. I never reminded her. She didn't remember what she gave me, but I never forgot. 3 days later, the silence broke, not over the phone, but across a candlelit table in a private room overlooking Boston Harbor. Our parents were there, Claire, radiant in designer silk, sipping champagne like nothing had changed. I stood slowly, every eye following me. You want to know how I feel? My voice didn't rise, but it cut through the chatter. Let me tell you. I turned to Claire. The tuition you couldn't cover at St. Martin's? That was me. The lease when your rent check bounced during lockdown? Me again. Payroll for 3 straight quarters? All me. Then to my parents. The new roof. The orthodontist. The wedding reception you bragged about for years. I signed every check. And then softly, so when you ask for $75,000, 0 cents like it's nothing, remember this. Nothing is what I have left for you. And that was only the beginning. You won't believe what happened when I revealed the final document, the one that made the entire room go silent. If you don't want to miss the next chapter of this story, hit that subscribe button now and stay with me, because the best part is coming. I filled every gap. Claire opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I stayed quiet because I thought that's what family did, I said softly. I thought being useful was the same as being loved. I thought if I gave enough, I'd earn a seat at this table. Mom stared at her wine glass. Dad's voice cut through the silence. That's enough, Corinne. I shook my head, not even close. I reached into my bag and set a manila folder on the linen tablecloth. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Inside are documents proving I've covered more than $120,000, 0 cents in expenses for this family since I was 16, including the contract that makes me majority owner of Maison Claire. Claire shot upright. You're lying. You signed it, I replied evenly. March 2015. You were crying on the phone, remember? I saved your business. You just forgot I was there. Dad stood, jaw tight. You're humiliating your sister. No, I said, my voice steady now. I'm done hiding what you chose not to see. I turned toward the door. Candlelight flickered behind me like restless secrets. No one called my name. No one followed. By the time I reached the street, the night air felt sharp and clean. For the first time in years, the weight wasn't mine. The next morning, I opened my banking app. My thumb hovered over the automatic transfer, $2,500, 0 cents, leaving my savings on the first of every month like clockwork. It started back when Claire's boutique couldn't cover utilities. I never told her. She assumed things resolved on their own. I tapped cancel transfer. A pop-up appeared. Are you sure? Yes. By Friday, the fallout arrived. Texts first. Landlord called. Rent bounced. Suppliers freaking out. Are you late on something? Then calls. Then voicemails. Each one more frantic than the last. Saturday morning the buzzer rang. I walked to the intercom, already knowing the voice waiting on the other end. Corinne, Claire snapped. Open the door. Dad's voice followed, lower but sharp. We're not here to fight. We just need to talk. Buzz them in. They entered like they still owned the place. Claire stormed past me into the living room, arms crossed tight. Dad followed slowly, scanning the space like he was searching for something to disapprove of. "You cut me off," Claire snapped. "The boutique is a mess. My suppliers are threatening lawsuits. My landlord wants 2 months' rent immediately. You can't just—" "I did," I said, calm as glass, "and I won't be restarting it." "You don't get to decide that," she fired back. "Not when we're this far in." "I've been deciding for years," I said evenly, walking to the side table where a leather-bound portfolio waited. "You just never noticed." I laid it on the coffee table and opened it. Receipts. Wire transfers, loan agreements, emails with her vendors. The notarized contract granting me 51% ownership of Maison Claire. "Everything you've built," I said, turning the pages slowly, "was scaffolded by me. Call me selfish, call me dramatic. But I'm done." Dad leaned over her shoulder, eyes narrowing at the signature. "This isn't how family works, Curran. We don't keep score." "No," I said softly. "You just don't like when the math is out loud." Silence cracked the room. Claire snatched the folder, scanning the pages like she was seeing my name for the first time. Her hands trembled, but her mouth stayed shut. "You wanted me to fix it?" I folded my arms. "I just did." Dad's voice hardened. "This ends now. You'll reinstate the payment. We can't afford this chaos. You have the means. You will help your sister." He spoke like I was still 16, like the last decade never happened. "I already have," I said, steady. When Claire cried night after night thinking her boutique was finished, when creditors circled, when payroll was a dream, I liquidated my portfolio. $60,000. My entire safety net. Claire's head snapped up. "You never said—" "You didn't ask," I cut in. She looked at Dad, eyes wide. "I thought it was short term." "You signed a contract," I said. "You were desperate. I saved your business. And then I disappeared so you could pretend it was all you." Claire's jaw tightened. "You didn't have to humiliate me, not in front of everyone." "I brought up the truth," I said evenly. "You brought the humiliation when you called me useless." Dad's voice rose. "This isn't about feelings. This is about unity, protecting the family." "No," I stepped closer. "This is about power. You don't get to mock the person keeping the lights on. You don't get to call her selfish when she stops letting herself be drained." Claire gave a sharp laugh, brittle and bitter. "So this is revenge? A pathetic power play?" "No," I said softly. "This is reclamation. For years, I kept you afloat and let you act like I didn't exist. I let you treat me like I owed you air. But I don't. Not anymore." Dad shook his head. "You're tearing this family apart." "I've been holding it together," I said. Quietly, invisibly. "You only noticed me when I said no." Claire clutched the portfolio to her chest. Her silence was louder than any shouting. When they left, I didn't follow. I closed the door gently and stood there, hand on the knob. For the first time, my voice had landed and I knew exactly where it would echo next. 2 weeks later, the manila envelope arrived heavy in my mailbox. Inside, a lawsuit. Claire was suing me, claiming coercion, that I'd exploited her emotional vulnerability when she signed over the boutique. Words like undue influence and breach of trust leapt off the page. I didn't panic. I called Laura, who referred me to an attorney she trusted, Margot Shaw. Margot flipped through the folder I handed her. Wire transfers, email threads, the notarized contract. She didn't even blink. "This isn't a case," Margot said coolly, closing the file. "It's a warning shot, and it won't land." The hearing came fast. Claire walked in flawless, lipstick sharp as a blade. Dad sat beside her, arms folded tight. They didn't look at me. Her lawyer called me manipulative, calculating, said I preyed on desperation in 2015, claimed I weaponized family for control. I sat there calm, the truth like steel in my hands. Then Margot stood. She didn't embellish. She laid out the truth. $60,000, 0 cents wired from my account, debts negotiated, landlord appeased, payroll saved, all documented, all signed. "This wasn't exploitation," she said evenly. "It was survival, and my client made it possible." The judge barely looked up. Motion to dismiss is granted. Just like that, it was over. Outside, the summer air felt warmer than the courtroom ever did. Margot clapped my shoulder. "You're free." But walking to my car, I realized something else had ended too. Not just the case, but the part of me that still expected them to care. After the gavel fell, the silence came quick. No calls, no letters. My mother didn't even send her usual holiday card with the garden photo. For the first time in my adult life, I was unaccounted for in my family's world. I thought it would hurt more. Instead, it felt like walking into a room I didn't know I'd been locked out of. The absence didn't ache, it clarified. With the legal mess behind me, I pulled out the easel I'd bought weeks earlier. I bought better brushes. I painted without rushing. Landscapes, unfinished portraits, sometimes just layers of red over green. It wasn't about creating something good. It was about doing something for no one but me. Then came the email. A woman I'd met years ago through a nonprofit grant was organizing a regional women's leadership conference. The theme? Resilience. Rebuilding without permission. She said they wanted someone who could speak about setting boundaries with grace, someone who had walked away from something that once defined her. They wanted me. I let the invitation sit for 2 days before replying. Then I wrote back, "Yes, I'll do it." For the first time in years, I let my voice rise above the quiet. My birthday came on a Tuesday, quiet and unceremonious. I wandered Boston's cobblestone streets and bought myself a slice of lemon cake from a cafe that didn't ask questions. No one called, not from the family at least. That evening, the sun slipped low behind the harbor when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Thinking of you. I miss my girl." 7 words. Not an apology, but almost. It was an acknowledgement. It was nostalgia, maybe regret, an echo of something she once meant. Years ago, that message would have undone me. I would have taken it as a sign to reopen the doors I'd just started to close. But not now. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without replying. The harbor wind was warm and clean. I passed the bookstore where I'd worked as a teenager, the one that smelled like old paper and lemon polish. Its lights glowed softly through the windows, and for a second, I saw myself shelving paperbacks, quiet, invisible, hopeful. But she wasn't me anymore. The conference hall was full, women in blazers, women running on borrowed time. A hush fell as I stepped behind the podium. The lights weren't harsh, but they carried weight. I didn't bring notes. I just told the truth. For most of my life, I began, I believed value came from what you could carry for others, their debts, their dreams, their disappointments. I became the helper, the planner, the one who showed up when no one else would. I paused. But the greatest thing I ever gave was permission to say no. I told them about the years of silent giving, the dinner when I finally said the one thing no one expected, the truth. "This isn't about revenge," I said quietly. "It's about weight, and how good it feels to set it down." When I finished, the room was still. Then came applause, not loud, but real. A woman in the front row cried quietly. Another stood like she was unfolding a truth inside herself. That night, I walked home under a wide, starlit sky, my name tag still clipped to my blouse, paint smudged on my fingers from the canvas I'd worked on that morning. No more saving anyone from themselves, no more giving until I disappeared. I didn't become famous. I didn't become rich, but I became free. And maybe that was the most ambitious thing of all. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever carried the weight of everyone else's needs and finally set it down? Share your advice for anyone learning to say no without guilt. If my story resonates, leave a comment below and tell me how you would have handled it. And don't forget to subscribe. I've got more stories about reclaiming your voice, and I want us to grow stronger together.